What is going on, everybody? I am back today to talk about a film that is a little bit older, but when I talked about wanting to watch horror movies of all different kinds this Halloween season, I wanted to watch this movie because I feel like right after it came out, even like maybe a year or so later, there was a ton of memes surrounding this movie. And at the time, I didn't watch it because I didn't really hear anything positive about it. And it has been memed and thrown around the internet so much that I was like, I need to finally sit down and watch this movie. And I was excited to watch it because I've heard how kind of silly and ridiculous the movie is. I'm looking forward to talking about it today. And the movie I'm going to be discussing with you is Ma. Ma is directed by Tate Taylor. Sue Ann is a loner who keeps to herself in her quiet Ohio town. One day she is asked by Maggie, a new teenager in town, to buy some alcohol for her and her friends, and Sue Ann sees the chance to make some unsuspecting, if younger, friends of her own. So it is absolutely wild to me to think that this film is made from the same director that made The Help, which is pretty bonkers to kind of wrap your head around when you're watching this movie. And I was very excited to watch the movie, and it's bad, it's really stupid, but there are some truly hilarious moments in this, whether that be unintentional or intentional. I have no idea, but I had fun watching this despite how legitimately terrible it is. It has the most cliche structure. The dialogue is absolutely horrendous, but it is really fun in moments because I feel like there are times where it's just so absurd it's impossible not to laugh. And I'll talk about that a little bit more in my broken down review. So very simply, we're introduced to Maggie, played by Diana Silvers, and her mother, played by Juliette Lewis. They move to this Ohio town after her mother gets a divorce. The mother is going through a lot of stuff. She has to get a job at the casino in the town that they live in Ohio, and her life kind of isn't exactly where she wants it to be. And her daughter is upset because she has to move back into this town, make all new friends. She's really worried going back to school. So she goes back to the school. She's sitting in a room by herself eating lunch, and this is approached by these random groups of kids who are like, hey, you should hang out with us. So she decides to hang out with them, goes out to buy some alcohol. Well, at the same time, we're introduced to Sue Ann, played by Octavia Spencer, who works at a veterinary office in Ohio, and her boss is played by Allison Janney, who really gives it her all in this performance. Every time Allison Janney was on screen, she was just like, I'm not having any of this bullshit. Like, I'm just gonna deliver my lines in the most ridiculous, mean-spirited way possible, and I really appreciated that. And her boss is horrible to her all the time. You could tell she really doesn't like her job all that much. And she's out going to the liquor store one day. She's approached by Maggie. Maggie says, hey, will you buy us this alcohol? And she agrees, and so she buys the alcohol for the kids, but then shortly after calls the cops on the kids, saying they're having a party somewhere. The cops show up. Because they're local, they don't really do anything. And then she decides to invite the kids over to her house after buying alcohol for them another time, and she starts hanging out with them, and the kids all think, oh, she's this cool adult that's like buying us alcohol and doing all this cool stuff for us. And then slowly her real intentions start to be revealed, and she starts doing very weird things. And the film is all about, who is Sue Ann? Why is she doing the things that she's doing? What happened in her life to drive her to get to this point? And then through Maggie's perspective, trying to figure out who she is and trying to make sure that she and her friends are safe. So as I said, this is not a good movie. It's really bad as far as like, if you're just looking at a straightforward narrative film, it's really poorly put together. It's got about every cliched trope that you could find in one of these movies. It's almost like a reverse home invasion film in moments, especially towards the third act. It does have the psychologically unstable lead character, which is always interesting to me. I like movies that examine that. And I do want to start off by saying Octavia Spencer gives it her all in this movie. And I mean, she gives every bit. Her performance is absurd. It's over the top, but it's freaking committed. And I have to give her the commitment. She does a fantastic job at playing this role. And every time she is on screen, she's captivating. I think she does a really great job at playing this really psychologically unstable character who's willing to essentially do anything to get popularity among these kids. The rest of the performances in the film are not nearly as strong. Like I said, Allison Janney does a really great job. Juliette Lewis is phenomenal in everything that she's in, but as far as the kids are concerned, our lead actress does a good job. The other kids, not as much. Like, the dialogue is kind of rough, and some of it comes off as unintentionally campy. I think of a movie, there's a movie I absolutely love that is horrible, and it's called Wish Upon. It's an absolutely terrible horror movie, and the dialogue is abysmal, but it's fun because of how stupid it is. The filmmaker didn't realize they were making something super campy and stupid, and that's what makes it so much fun, is that the director thought they were making a straightforward, serious horror film, and it came off as really stupid. I think there are moments in this that feel like that like the director had a specific intentionality, and that because it's poorly executed, it's hilarious to watch. Then there are some moments that have some more intentionality, like Octavia Spencer's character flatlining this woman with her truck. That is one of the funniest things I've seen in a movie in quite some time. And there are a few moments like that throughout the film. But my biggest issue with this movie, and whenever you're jumping into something like this, there's so much of it that feels like unintentional camp, and then they try to play it for serious drama, and that to me is when you've kind of lost me. Because in this thing, like, I'm all for horror that covers really serious familial trauma. I think that those types of horror films are fascinating. One perfect example that gets talked about a lot this time of year is The Babadook. I think The Babadook is a great film that's truly horrifying, that mixes in real life familial trauma with supernatural horror and blends the two seamlessly. Jennifer Kent, phenomenal director, does a great job with that material, but knows that she's making a serious film about familial trauma and executes it really well. In this movie, just from looking at the premise, it bleeds camp. Like, this woman having these young kids come party and drink at her house, and her trying to be one of the crew. Like, there's no real, I feel like, especially with the performance that Octavia Spencer is giving, there's no way that I see this as like serious or gritty or truly unnerving in any way. Like, just especially in the way that it's shot, there's just nothing that's giving me that vibe whatsoever. And then they start doing these scenes where they're trying to explain Octavia Spencer's backstory to where you do feel bad for her, and you don't really feel bad that she's being so awful to these adult characters because she was treated terribly as a child. But the problem is, it feels so out of place with the rest of the movie that anytime those scenes were happening, I was like, okay, this really isn't all that interesting. I get what they're trying to go for. They're trying to give her some sort of humanity so that you feel bad for her. But then she's also doing these things with her daughter that are absolutely terrible. So it's like she is a bad person. She's doing these terrible things to her daughter that it's implied through the film. And so it's just it just feels like a mess at that point. It's like, what exactly do you want us to think about this character? And sure, you could say that they're trying to make her emotionally complex, but I don't think this film is deep enough in any way to kind of justify that. And so that really pulled it out for me. There's not really any like brutal kill sequences in this. It's a relatively tame film until the third act. And like I said, there are some fun moments that I was smiling in this just because of how downright silly and absurd that it was. But it's not a good movie. It's not well put together. It's not really well shot. There's not a whole lot for me to be like, okay, go watch this movie because it's great. It's silly and stupid enough in moments that I think there are bits and pieces that will make you laugh so hard that you'll cry, because that's exactly what happened to me. I laughed so hard I cried multiple times. But I don't know, I don't see even those sequences being enough for me to revisit it anytime soon. And that's unfortunate, because I was hoping this would be like a campy masterpiece, and it was just a fun ride for moments. So have you seen Ma? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Leave me a comment down below and let me know what you thought. I thought it was a bad movie that had some truly hilarious moments, and Octavia Spencer gave a really fantastic performance. As always, if you can like the video and subscribe to the channel, helps me out a lot and lets me know the type of content you're looking for. I'm always putting out new material and look forward to getting more out for you in the near future. And as always, everyone, thank you so much for watching, and have a great rest of your day.